don't go there. You'll drive slow. You know. He had a guy in Pancake Lane come around with a petition. And he said, "You want to sign this? I want him to repay Pancake Lane and flatten those."
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have confirmation that our streaming is back up and we are recording. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be resolved that Council reconvene the regular meeting and that Council adjourn the in-camera session and do now rise with no report. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any further discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? And not seeing any.
Sorry, was there a vote taken?
Oh, I'm sorry. No. All those in favor? None opposed. A motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Prior to going into staff reports, we do have a report by a member of council, which is Councillor Olson, regarding the Regional Transit Specialized Micro Transit Vehicle update.
Councillor Olson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our last council meeting, you asked me the question about who is going to bear the cost of the extra 4 paratransit vehicles. And I had a chance to talk about that at the August 4th meeting, or 24th meeting of the Regional Transit NASAC very question, and it was the cost of the extra 4 vehicles is borne by the contractor. And then I see that you had the opportunity to hear at the August 29th Regional Council meeting the same thing. So I trust that will satisfy your question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, it was good to see that this is one item that at least directly is not going to affect the taxpayers of the region. I'm not too sure there isn't going to be a roundabout way, but we'll let that go for another day. Thank you for that information, Councillor. Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Olson. The question I have is, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Olson. I noticed that the Niagara Independent is reporting that the residents of Niagara will be receiving a 6.65% levy for the Niagara Transit Commission. Is that separate beyond this, what you're reporting today?
That's separate, and that's anything we have in the Transit Commission budget has to be approved by the region, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions concerning Mr. Olson's report? Not seeing any? To the clerk.
Thank you. We do have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that Council receive the verbal Regional Transit Specialization Micro Transit Vehicle update from Councillor Olson for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any further.
Thank you. One last chance. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring you to your staff reports. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2024-0192 Meridian Community Center Adjacent Lands Implementation Options for Information, and that Council directs staff to proceed with option 1, retain north parcel with regards to land options for the town-owned property described as Part 4, Plan 59R 16105. And that Council approves the proposed severance of the lands legally described as Part 4, Plan 59R 16105, to create 2 separate parcels, with the north parcel being approximately 0.9 acres in size and the south parcel being approximately 0.71 acres in size. And that Council directs staff to take the necessary steps to effect the said severance of land. And that Council directs staff to bring a bylaw to surplus the proposed severed lands, being the north parcel, upon a deposited reference plan being issued. And that Council directs staff to hire a local realtor to take the necessary steps to offer the north parcel for sale on the open real estate market. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn to Council for comments, and I will turn first to Deputy Mayor Wink.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. The last paragraph, that Council directs staff to hire a local realtor to take the necessary steps to offer the north parcel, is in conflict with the option 1, which is to retain the north parcel. So I would suggest that that last paragraph should say necessary steps to offer the south parcel for sale on the open real estate market.
Thank you. I have so noted that if council is also agreeable with that change.
And Counselor, while you have the floor, do you want to begin the discussions?
Sure. We've been going on with this for 5 years plus with respect to the parking. I'm glad to see that it's coming to the end. I'll ask the question that you want to ask. We've utilized the north parcel for temporary parking. We put temporary pavement on there. Just if we could have the director of RCW to make comment on the parking situation with that north parcel being utilized at this point.
To the Director of RCW, Ms. Van Ravensway.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely. I believe that we have heard over and over again from our user groups how much they appreciate the temporary parking area. And I know through our licensed agreement committee as well, working group, the users were concerned that they were going to be losing that extended area. It is appreciated for many of the events on an ongoing basis. And I'm sure that they would be happy with this decision if it's made.
Okay, thank you. Counselor?
So I think that north parcel of Part Lot 4 will be better utilized because there's no parking spot delineations at this point in time, and people are parking every which way. So even by putting in proper parking stalls, we will see an increase in parking availability for the users of the MCC. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Counselor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We're basically talking about this because of the remarkable success of the MCC as a community facility and the amount of work that we have there and I guess the ingenuity of the staff to make sure that they keep on coming up with new projects and new involvements for the people of the community. So I think that's why we're here, and I think the money that we're going to receive from the sale of the land and where we're going to apply it is the proper way to go because it leads to long-term stability for more stability for the community financially. So I'm definitely going to be voting for this option. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any other comments? Counselor Nisnik?
Yes, thank you. I'm certainly in favor of retaining the north parcel for parking. I think that will be a nice addition and just alleviate some of the stress on the current parking that's at the MCC. As well, I just would hope that any developers who might be happening to listen today and interested in that southern property, that they will consider building something that's close to what we call attainable housing in that area for some of our residents who are looking to downsize away from large homes as well as large townhouses, that sort of thing, and making a beautiful building there that can house some of our residents in a different fashion that would be somewhat attainable for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. A question to the CAO. In this report and in other reports, especially when mentioned to the public, there was a mention of a parquet. Does that decision get made at a later date further down the development trail?
So council has some choice there. You can amend some of the direction if you're clearly of the mindset that you want to see a parquet, if there's no doubt in your mind. In the alternative, you could direct staff to come back with a couple of different variations on what that might look like, both by size and or by cost or by content, that sort of thing. So you can choose to make a decision or an alteration to your directions to staff today, or you can simply, we can take it as direction that you'd like us to work on that, or you could tell us you have no interest in a parquet and to devote no more time and effort to that. topic. So procedurally, we're happy to adjust to your preferences. Decide today, or just give direction for more information for us to bring back options, or tell us outright you don't want to explore that further and please focus on the parking lot. Those are all viable options for you at this point in time, and we'll adjust accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Mr. CAO. Myself, I would like more clarification, maybe expense of what size of the parkette and maybe more details. That's what I would like. Councillor Wink?
So just for clarification then, the subdivisions that are going in north of Summerside Drive, we do have open natural space there as a natural park. Is there any other space in those subdivisions that are designated for a parkette or a smaller park?
To Ms. Van Ravensway?
Opposite to Lametti Drive, we will have a very large park. East Fonthill Park will be going in that area adjacent to the trail. So there will be an additional park there. And also, we have just developed the small parkette, the sitting area opposite of Wellsprings in that area, which is also a bonus.
Right, so then that open space will probably, that naturalized area will probably end up, there's a trail that goes through there and probably will have benches going forward. My thought of a parkette is something that doesn't have swings and whatever and just some benches. Well, we've got benches on the other side of the MCC through that subdivision. So I'm not sure if we need another parkette like 2 football throws away.
Yeah, yes. And to go with your thoughts, if you go farther down Rice Road and Highway 20, there are benches around that stormwater pond to enjoy nature there. So I just thought I'd bring that up. Obviously, you would say no to the parkette at this time?
I think the parking is more critical
Okay.
for the usage of the MCC. And there are other parks either already in existence or in the future that's servicing that area. So I don't see the need for a parkette.
Okay. I know that, I'm sorry, I know I'm talking with the CAO, and perhaps Ms. Driesling can give her thoughts on this, that the parkette would act as a buffer between the proposed, what we hope will be housing and the parking lot. And any comments that you might have on needing a buffer, or can we just put a fence up and plant some trees, or what would your professional opinion be on that, if I may ask?
Through the mayor to council, it's really up to you and how you would like it to proceed and how you'd like it to look. I mean, staff can do it either way. I would agree that if there is a natural buffer already on the other side, that, you know, to focus on that with benches and a natural park would probably be the best way to go. But again, staff are happy to bring forward other options for council to consider, or you can give us direction today.
Okay, thank you very much. Does any other councillor have an opinion at this time on this subject? Councillor Nesnick.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a quick question. So when you look at the one drawing, not sure, page 29 of the report, I do like the idea of a sidewalk cutting through from Rice Road over to the parking lot at the south part of the parking lot. So having a walkway through there would be nice. And then, as you say, if you just kept a little bit of a planting strip, that would soften up the division between the development and the parking spaces there. So those would be my comments. If you want to give us some more information about the parkette, then we can jostle that around at a future date, but I don't really see a need for it either. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillor. Any other comments at this time? Not, Kevin? Okay, sorry, go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you, Mayor. Make sure you can hear me.
Yeah, you're good.
Sometimes I hit the mute button and then I have to find it. Mind you, other people want to mute me as most of the time, so that's kind of the other option. I concur with Councillor Niznik and the others. The need for a parkette in that particular area, I think, is superseded by the need for parking spaces, more so for the use of the MCC. My only question will be, and this is more for the future, is we know that for the MCC, in many cases, a lot of events, large buses and that are transporting teams or people or things into the area. And whether I'm not sure where they go to park right now. I have a feeling they head over to the mall, whether that's something that should be considered in the future of providing at least some allocation for larger entities, that they would have adequate parking rather than tying up parts of the regular parking spots. That's it. I'm in favor of moving through with the hybrid, and I'm not in favor of parkette. So that's where I stand.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any other comments at this time? Not seeing any. So, Mr. CEO, we just go ahead and go for option 1 now, the hybrid, and we vote on that. Is that the next steps?
I see no reason not to.
Okay, and how I'm still a little confused how we're handling. Some councilors didn't want to say. Do we leave the parkette option in there for now and decide it at a later date, or do we, or should we? What's your guidance on that?
I always think more information leads to better decisions. So I think your best direction to us is to return with cost estimates and a specific plan for a parking lot. Also some direction that be included in the 2025 budget, one assumes, or at least that's more likely to be a multi-year piece, but for us to take steps to roll out a project, right? They sort of do some engineering leading up to eventual construction. But in any event, and for us to return with fundamentally 2 options, what that looks like as pure parking, the proposed new parcel, or a parcel that is predominantly parking with potential, keep using the word parkette, but space that isn't purely for parking. And that can have some analysis, some costing, and you can see the implications and what that'll look like specifically. To Councillor Niznik's point, we do sort of have some conceptual drawings already of what that looks like, but we don't have any numbers, and we haven't spent much time making a case for or against the notion of including a parkette or a non-parking feature in the lands. I think we could package that as a very focused report, and it'll become abundantly clear to you that you do or don't, so which is the better way forward for the community. And we can certainly do that this calendar year. So, in fact, in the not too distant future, I would think. That said, I'd be happy to be guided by any thoughts either Mr. Marr, Ms. Dusling, or Ms. Van Ravensway have with respect to timing. I would imagine we could do that in late October, possibly even early October, but I'm happy to be in their hands on that. Maybe we could just say the month of October or early November. So if you give us the freedom, we'll come back with more, and at that point, that'll be your only decision point, I would submit, I think, possibly which year's budget it goes into, but fundamentally, it'll come back with one real choice, and you can, at that point, you'll have more information in front of you to make a definitive decision.
And currently, parkette or not, this decision here will, of course, sell and keep. That will stay.
Yes, so today you'd be deciding to, I believe, you're moving towards a decision to sell the northern, to retain the northern portion and sell the southern portion, and we'll come back with a subsequent report detailing how and when construction would look like and what a parkette would or wouldn't look like and cost. And so that would be the final decision would just be a much smaller one. But today you'd be deciding to both retain and sell a component of the lands.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CAO. Councilor Eckert?
I'm wondering, I'm listening to the comments around the table, and I'm in total agreement with it. And with the information that we've received today about the close proximity of existing parkettes, et cetera, it doesn't appear to me that there's a real appetite for another parkette in this area. So I'm wondering if staff time is better utilized by not bringing back a report that it doesn't look like we're going to support anyway.
And that was why I was encouraging.
That's my
all
comment.
council. So then, can I take it, Councilor, that you would go against the parkette?
Yes.
Okay, excellent, because that's what I was trying to get. I don't want to stamp to waste time on something that doesn't have any traction at council. Councilor Wink.
To be quite clear, the parking report suggested that we need 90. Right now, that it suggested that we can handle 74. We put in a parkette, that number is going to go down considerably. So to Councilor Eckert's point, I would suggest that we save staff time and don't bother coming back with another report about a parkette.
And that's what we, like I say, that's what I was trying to get at. Any other comments on the parkette? Should we have a vote or just?
We can take that as direction, and we'll
Okay.
simply come back with a report on timing and budgetary, how we'd approach the parking lot. If that's, you've made yourselves abundantly clear.
Okay.
And we're happy to take that as direction.
Okay, any councilor object to that going forward? Don't see any. Excellent. I turn to the clerk.
3, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Council will be therefore voting on the original motion as presented, being put forth by Councilor Wink, seconded by Councilor Eckert. Is there any other discussion?
Yes. Any further discussion on the decision before us, parking lot and housing, or selling the southern portion? Not seeing any. I will call the vote. All those in favor? And I see none opposed. Motion carries. Turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a motion put forth by Councilor Kerr, seconded by Councilor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that council receive report 2024-0161, Clerk's Department Business Case for Licensing and Records Clerk for Information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this item, which is basically the addition of a person in the clerk's department? Perhaps, Mr. CEO, it was pretty thorough report. Any comments that you'd like to make at this time? If not, that's fine.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. After reading the report, then, the information was definitely there. Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. As we deliberate on the request to add additional staff to the clerk's department, it's important to consider the financial considerations and the pressures this municipality is under. What makes it more challenging for me is the fact that the region's proposed increases seem to be extraordinarily high. They're almost at 9% tax increase, 12.59% hike in water and wastewater rates, 5.9% waste management levy, 6.65 levy for the Niagara Transit Commission. That's what we're facing, and that's 60% of our, when we go to our residents, that's 60%. Those are huge numbers. I mean, even if that's like 10%, you know, even if we come in at 5%, which is 3 and 2, we still are increasing our tax burden for our residents significantly. Exploring answers to the request. Given these financial constraints, I think we need to investigate further the enhancements that AI provides. For example, tools like clerk minutes and fireflies are being used to improve efficiencies of recording and transcribing meetings. These AI tools integrate an existing system using natural language processing. And I've experimented with a program called Otter, and my brother's company actually used Otter. It's amazing what this minute-taking, transcribing software does for individuals. So I think that's one thing I'd like the staff's department to look into. The other thing is to reviewing clerk department service charges. I took a look at that because that's an area that I think should be addressed for the budget coming up as well. What I did look at was, for instance, the services like Commissioner of Oaths, for example. Welland charges $15 for every signature they provide. They don't provide the document, they don't provide any service. You just come in. If it's right, they sign it. If it's wrong, they don't sign it. We, as a great community, provide a great service. It's $10 for the first one, first signature, $5 for each additional one. We provide the document, we fill out the document, and we help them. So I think we have an opportunity to collect more fees from our residents and from the clerk's department. In conclusion, while the need for additional staff is recognized, the current economic climate necessitates a cautious approach. By considering the adoption of AI tools and reviewing our service fees, we may be able to offer to enhance the efficiency of the clerk's department without the immediate need for additional personnel, in my view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Hildebrand. Any further comments from any other members? I see Councilor Nesnick.
Yes, just maybe a clarification from the CAO with regards to chart number 1. So currently we have 3 full-time staff in our clerk's department. And then when I look down to, oh boy, was it Lincoln? So Lincoln, so they have added in their admin assistant, and they're close to the same size as us. As well as Niagara on the Lake. So where are the 2 customer services residents in Thorold there that are listed as 7? So under what category are the folks in that central office? Where are they kind of slotted in terms of which department they belong to? I'm just trying to make sure that 3 is accurate, and like, is there no secretary who answers phones and funnels, that sort of thing, to the clerk's department that should be added into that position count?
To the CAO, please.
I can promise we didn't miscount on 3. We didn't actually need all the fingers on one hand. No, we try to provide the context because comparing clerk's department isn't always apples to apples. As you can see, other corporations, for some, that's where customer service belongs. For other, they have different philosophies. I think one maybe has payroll in their clerk's department. We don't all. Municipal structure is in part dependent upon the staffing and in part depending on your size, of course, what makes the most sense. So we were trying to be forthright there so that you could see when it is apples to apples and when it isn't, when it's apples to oranges. What you can certainly see, regardless of the outliers, is that we trend small per capita, and that at the end of the day doesn't have to be decisive to you, but it's hard when that's not how you earn a living to decide whether someone's overstaffed or understaffed. So that context, but I think neither Ms. Wilford or I think that's absolutely determinative, but it is good context for you to see that certainly you couldn't make the argument that it's overstaffed, and I don't think you can sustain an argument that we're staffed to the average even. I don't think any fair analysis leads to a conclusion other than we're at the low end when looking at even vaguely reasonable comparators from the region. So with that being said, also the goal here is not to have you make any sort of decision today. It's fundamentally to sort of streamline the budget process when we get there. Because those are hard conversations, those are difficult days and budget sessions, and to go down a rabbit hole sort of takes away from on any one file, takes away from the process as a whole. So we thought this was a safe way to put forth a business case, and you will or won't find it persuasive. But look, fundamentally, the benefits, it's hard to quantify the benefits of having all of the committees fundamentally perform as this council does, which is to say reports in eScribe that can be reviewed and approved and not missed, meetings that run in a professional, expeditious manner. And those are, although I certainly understand everything Councillor Hildebrand's had to say, no, AI does not fix the human interaction. This town runs on its volunteers for all sorts of things, but mostly our public facing, whether we're talking about active transportation or seniors advisory, or how we run most of the events, really requires some sort of, the benefit here is in the support and the consistency of that, and then how that information flows into this council from those various bodies. And I assume each of you over the past year and a half would have had at least a couple of experiences where you thought, I wonder if that could be done differently or better. And certainly from my observations for over the past 5 years, this is a piece whose time has come. In any event, we're not asking for any sort of decision today. We're trying to plant the seed and the idea. We certainly agree with all of Councillor Hildebrand's analysis on the fees, which is why, one, we have a separate contract out that's with the consultant looking at those. And we anticipate having that prior to Christmas, coming back to you later in the fall. So we think our fees are under. I agree with your basic assessment, that there's substantial, that we're undercutting our neighbors, which makes us busier, and that the fees are inappropriately low, and the point is not to subsidize. And as we indicate in the report, at the moment, I can't exactly quantify either what those should be. We should wait for the report to tell us that. But clearly, they are too low, and that demand for those services is also up. Those things are both correct. So we do think there's certainly a way to partially offset this proposed cost with enhanced revenues and not specifically just look to the taxpayer. So we do hope there are opportunities. Regardless, that's sort of, I think, in a nutshell, the business case. I hope that answers your question, Councillor. There are some outliers, but fundamentally it is 3 human beings, and the administrative tasks are at the moment entirely or substantively handled by the committee coordinator. So that's a component of what's presently her job description, and we're kind of looking to obviously pull those things out and with this new position so that we can free up staff to do, and free up that committee coordinator to do committee coordination functions by pulling out the some, I don't want to say lesser included, they're different topics, but some other areas, and allow just a little more specialization, which as we've urbanized and grown a population, we find ourselves more in need of. That's the reality. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Councilor Niznik, you still have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Cribbs. I'm glad you can count to 3, so that's terrific news for our town. Also, just I do appreciate the business case you made in terms of taking on the stat and advisory committee role. I have found that when our clerks are present at our committees, they run much more smoothly and officiously. So I appreciate any time that they have been in attendance for those. So just wondering if, in the roundabout way, if some cost savings in other departments would then be able to support this new position. So as you work through those budgets, I would encourage for hopefully that would help to offset the costs of those sorts of things. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Councillor. Any additional comments, Mr. CEO? Pretty well covered.
I think everyone has a reasonable grasp of the strengths and weaknesses of the case and the notion of why it's there. And you really shouldn't make any decisions until you're faced with a whole bunch of other competing needs, which is the budget process, and you decide where you'll get best bang for the buck for residents. That's the exercise you'll be engaging with. And good luck to all of us during that time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. CAO. Any other comments? Councillor Hildebrand?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to the Commissioner of Oaths, the way I ran across this Service Ontario says they provide Commissioner of Health service. And our local Commissioner of Health Service Center at the Fond Hill area, they eliminated that position because they couldn't afford to keep that position available anymore. So all that workload, I would guess, comes to our town. And our fees were significantly less than their fees.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments on this report? Counselor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm I'm hopeful that sometime we will get to the point where we don't have to add any more people to the town because, this is the biggest cost of operating any municipality is in salaries. And at some time, it's also the cost of the biggest growth area in the cost of taxation in all levels of government. And I think sometimes we just add people and we forget that this is a fixed cost. This is not going to change. This becomes a part of the structure of the town. And it's always going to be there. And we say today, yes, we'll do this today, and it's going to be there for the next 100 years. And unless technology takes over or something happens, but at some point, some specific point in time, somebody has to say, no, we've got to stop this, and it's we got to get a hold of these costs and put them in the frontline things a little more, maybe. But I have a little bit of reluctance to agree with this, just because this is at some point we're going to have to find a balance here, that we get the services and we get excellent service, but the community just can't go on like increases. And I guess that's just my sentiment. We've been forewarned about that this is coming in the budget, I guess, and that would be my forewarning of my probable response of what's going to happen. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Counselor. Any other comments on this report? Counselor Wink.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. About a year ago, we knew that there was going to be a couple of positions coming up. We knew about the RCW manager. That was said to us. I believe that there was another operator in Public Works coming up. So, this is a bit of surprise that this one was put forward, because there was no foresight at that point in time that we would need another position. And I agree that we've got to look at this cautiously going forward. I'm not saying no, but I'm not there yet. But I agree with the comments that Councillor Olson said, that we keep on adding people, and that's a fixed cost and will always be there. And that cost will always go up with inflation and the cost of benefits and everything else. So, we've got to be very cautious when we're adding bodies to the corporation. So, like I say, I concur with Councillor Olson's comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Wink. Any other comments? I see Councillor Eckert.
I might as well throw my 2 cents in too. It's very easy to justify, I think, to the general public when you add another operator in and they see the results that our streets are being plowed and et cetera, mowed, the lawns, et cetera. Where it's difficult is when it's kind of behind the scenes look. The problem I have is that clearly our clerk's office runs extremely efficiently and over and above what they're being called upon to do, or they perform at a level. What we have to be concerned about is, where does that start to break down? And do we wait till it breaks down so that people notice a lack of service, that we say, oh, maybe we should have done something about that? So I'm not I know this is for information purposes, and we'll have a more in-depth discussion about it later on. But I think that's something that I know it's tough to keep adding. I agree with the comments that were made, but sometimes you have to look at what the potential is if we don't do something at a certain point in time. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And of course, at the bottom of all this conversation, we are indeed a growing town, and at some point, the more people we have to provide a service to, we'll need to have the manpower to provide those services. Whether we're here now for the clerk's department is up to this council's decision. Any other comments as we get ready to call the vote? If not, turn back to the clerk. We're just voting on receiving this report for information, Madam Clerk?
Through Mr. Mayor, that is correct. This is just an information report. I do understand that this position will be built into the budget, which will be presented to you, and certainly it's council's discretion whether to approve that or to remove that from the potential budget.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor of receiving this report for information? And I see everyone's in favor, none against, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to your next staff report, which is being put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2024-0187 Beautification Service Standards for Park Maintenance for information, and that Council endorse Service Standards 3601 Service Standards for Beautification Park Maintenance. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Obviously, this came to us because of the discussions we've had with user groups, so let's just say that, and they laid out the maintenance schedule for the parks. So I guess open it up to council, but before I do, I'm going to go just a little deviation on this. Beautification, let's go to beautification of the town, if I may, and let's talk about, if I may, the rural program of grass cutting. I know I've either talked to the director or Mr. Cook. And I was quite amazed, to tell you the honest truth. I thought that we cut the grass twice, whether it be the first part of June, last part of June, whatever that is. And I always thought, and Ryan, you've told me that I'm wrong, that we always did the second cut around the middle of August, which would be the ideal thing, because I drive up and down the streets, roads. The weeds are 3 or 4 feet high. They're coming into seed, and I'm thinking of all the farms out there that these seeds are going to be blowing onto private land, which indeed will lead to increased pesticide use. And but you tell me that we always have done the second cut in October. I'd like you to elaborate on that, if you could, please, sir.
Yeah, through the mayor. So we do provide 2 cuts in the rural area. The first one is kind of mid to early summer. The second is in the fall. It has been cut as late as October. I believe the second cut has actually started now and will be completed within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So we do some stuff in September. This year we got our window was a little earlier, so we are going to provide earlier cutting, but it certainly is not in August.
And of course, it's more noticeable this year because of all the rain we've had. Everything has grown exceptionally well, crops and weeds. So, and I know that your department has got various complaints about intersections not being as open as they should be. So I am happy to hear that we are going to be doing a lot of the cutting in September, and I look forward to, because I have gone in other municipalities, and they are the same way that we are. We're no different than the other municipalities that I see in the region. They also have not done that second cutting yet, so I can appreciate that. Like I say, it's a strange year this year with all the rain we've had, and I can appreciate that. Anyway, back to back to the report. Any councilors have questions, comments on our maintenance schedules, and whatever? I'll open it to questions, comments. Deputy Mayor Wink, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Manager of Public Works. In there's a $7,000 capital purchase for a plug aerator. So looking at what plug aeration means, the aerator pulls out pieces of the earth, and then now you've got these little chunks of ground that has to be cleaned up or otherwise will be tamped down onto the playing field again. Has there been any consideration using a spike aerator? So spike aerator is little knives that go into the ground that aerate it. It's something that golf courses use, and I'm sure there's other applications for that, and I'm not sure of the cost, but was there consideration on doing a spike aerator? Because I think there would be less cleanup after the aeration's done than a plug aerator.
I will turn to, we'll go to Mr. Cook.
Yeah, through the mayor, we can definitely look at the cutting aerator instead of the plug. The cost would be the same. It actually, the spike or the plug are interchangeable, so it just depends on, it's really the piece of equipment that sits on. We have tried the spike aerator in the past on a smaller unit. It just isn't heavy enough to get into the soil as compact as it is. That's why we're asking for a little bit bigger machine.
So I've seen on some of the applications on the internet that they, at the back of the aerator, they put on cement blocks that make it heavier that will go into the earth a little bit better. So there is applications, you know, if a multi-million-dollar golf course uses a spike aerator, I would think that there's good application for it on playing fields, so.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Any other questions or comments on the standards? Councillor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was a question for Mr. Marr on this, and I appreciate the fact that we now have standards. Is there a standard for a good repair? Like, is that, I don't see that defined anywhere, a standard of state of good repair, or were we going to use that as the standard? For example, for play structures in the parks and those types of things?
To Mr. Cook?
Yeah, through the mayor, the intention of the entire document is to provide a standard of good repair. So the
okay.
playground equipment is inspected on an annual basis and then kept up to the CSA standard.
Okay, thank you. And I had one other question, but I forgot what it was now, Mr. Mayor. You know, my memory fails me, so I'll leave it at that.
We can come back.
You know, I don't know, you know.
Councillor Kerr? Did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess in listening to the discussion about aeration strategies, et cetera, and having been involved in that for 50 years plus, I think I can help Councillor Wink understand the differentiation slightly by recognizing it comes back to soil quality that you're working with. And my expectation is where the plug aerators are going to be of greatest value are on the types of fields which we're having the difficulties with, be they Centennial Park and everything else in the type of use, versus that on a manicured golf course, which generally has a far better depth of profile. And what's particularly interesting is they actually use small plug aerators on greens when they do a renovation in the fall and clean them up. However, plug aeration on major fields, it rarely is cleaned up. That soil actually goes back in and fills the hole. I aerate my lawn on a routine basis with a plug aerator, and it has great response, especially if you have slightly heavier ground. So that being said, I think that the report is good. I appreciate the standards that Mr. Cook has put together. I think they're really good going forward and gives us a basis of where we should be going for the town. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Councillor Nesnick.
Yes, thank you for responding so positively and so thoroughly. to the Public Works. So just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, was there any continued conversation with our user groups with regards to cost share for the cost of maintaining the fields?
Let's maybe, Mr. Cook, I see you reaching for your microphone. Go ahead, sir.
Through the mayor, yeah, we're continuing to talk with the soccer club. They had a board meeting last week, so we're waiting to hear the results of that. And if there's any chance of partnership, we're definitely willing to discuss that further.
Councillor? Perfect. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this report? Not seeing any. We'll turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we will be looking for the vote.
Okay, so on this item, all those in favor? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your next report, we have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckhart, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2024-0186, proposed fall commencement of manager recreation, culture, and wellness position for information, and that Council direct the manager of People Services to immediately commence the recruitment process for the manager of recreation, culture, and wellness. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments, questions on this report on the early commencement of the manager at RCW? Brian, or Councilor Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would be in favor of this going forward on an earlier basis. Reasoning is we've had a number of reports that we have endorsed and moved forward that this is a position that is required, needed, with the growing, continuing growing usage at the MCC and perhaps potential expansion of activities there. I believe this would be of great benefit to that facility and to the town and to the existing director as well. I think that one of the overriding factors that I'm looking at of doing it early is the fact that there's money in the budget for this. This is September. By the time our director of persons gets on this and we hire somebody, it's probably not going to be, if it was October, we'd be lucky. We're probably looking at November. And therefore, they're going to have maybe a couple of months of orientation of what goes on here and what's needed, and then they hit the ground running in January. I think if we delay this to January, we're looking at spring before we get somebody on board. So I would be in favor of this motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments on this report? Councillor Olson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have my own notwithstanding clause, and notwithstanding what I said about staffing before, I'm going to be in support of this because the money is in the budget, and I think you reward success by advancing success, and this is certainly a success story at the MCC, and I think we're all going to benefit from this. We've seen, and it might even be one of the examples of where things got to the breaking point almost, and then we had to act, and that's where I feel we are with it, with this position. So I'll be voting in favor of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Olson. And any other comments before I call a vote? Councillor Nesnick?
Yes, thank you. So just certainly I'm also going to vote in favor of the proposal. Just to clarify, though, this is not just the manager for the MCC. This is manager for the entire rec department, so of culture and wellness. So assuming that they will have many duties involving our recreation, culture, and wellness program forthcoming. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. CAO, any comments on that statement?
Certainly, Councillor Niznik's correct. We all use MCC as shorthand because it's Camelot. It's the shining castle on the, not exactly on a hill, but pretty close to it, right? So for clarity, where we stand at the moment, you're a month off sort of publicly seeing the proposed budget for next year. That budget conceptually has 2.5 new jobs baked into it. This one's already been approved by council, and if you support this report, the person will start 3-4 months earlier than they would have otherwise. And we do have the monies to pay for that. And then, so the budget has 2.5. This is one. The clerk position we just discussed 20 minutes ago is another. And then there's a 0.5 in the Human Resources Department to go from 1.5 to 2.0. So that's the extent of proposed staffing changes for 2025, one of which has been decided. The other 1.5 will be decisions of council during the budget process to support or not as you deem appropriate. With that being said, we're excited to move forward. We head into, with respect to the MCC itself, it is fair to say, although I'm completely in agreement with Councillor Niznik, I think we more often need to characterize this as Rec and Culture's Old Pelham Town Hall. It's our parks, it's our other, but as we head towards the winter months, in fact, the MCC becomes utterly dominant and the other things drop off dramatically. So this is would be really good timing because the winter season is by far and away the MCC's busiest. And if we can start a person earlier, i.e. prior to year end, he or she can learn the ropes, figure out where the paper clips are kept, and really be there in a meaningful sense early in the winter season as opposed to late in it or after it. And so they would deliver the most benefit and the most value in December and in January and February. Like those are really, we have major silver stick tournaments, et cetera, like tons of usage. So this would be extremely helpful. And these 3 or 4 months would be peak value for the position. So I hope it meets to your liking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. We've heard from the CEO. Perhaps we should hear from the director of the RCW. And does it indeed speak the truth? Do we need this person to the Ms. Director?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So how much time do you have?
Well, that's what we all know, that the programs you guys are running through recreation is just unbelievable, the participation you're having in them.
Yeah. I would like to say the CAO does speak the truth in this matter, and I totally support everything that he said. And I appreciate council considering this recommendation. It is an extremely important position that we are lacking, and I think we're all feeling it. So I just want to say I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. I appreciate that. Any other comments from any member of council? Not seeing any. We'll call the vote. All those in favor of this report? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're on to our next report, and we have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckhart, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2024-0197, Proposed Joint Tourism Initiative for information, and that Council approve a 2-year commitment to the Niagara South Coast Tourism Association Fund as a Class B member commencing January 2025, including an annual contribution to the NSCTA in the amount of $12,000. And further, that Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to take any necessary steps to appoint staff to the steering group and make administrative level commitments and contributions to the undertaking as determined necessary by the CAO, and to report back with progress updates by Q3 of 2025. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Well, before I open it to council, I'd just like to say that I support this fully. This is partly due, CEO can correct me if I'm wrong, we all know that the city of Port Colborne has taken in tour boats, I guess, and they land and then they look to see where they want to go in the peninsula. And if our name is on that pamphlet, I'm sure they'll, we got a provincial park. Sooner than later, we will indeed have a winery for them to attend and various other aspects of the town. So I think this is a great idea, and it's and not a lot of money to that's going to be put out there. So any comments from other members of council or Mr. CAO? Any other, you've been leading the negotiations or being involved, any other points we should know? That was a pretty good report, obviously.
Well, I hear the author's really good looking and
Yes, of course.
makes good arguments. Look, with the next year's budget, I think it's 189,000 is 1%, very close to that. 194, thank you, is 1% tax increase. So 12, if it was 19,400, it'd be 0.1. A suggested 12,000 is not quite 2/3 of that. So you're talking about 0.06, 0.058, something in there. That's what we're asking for from the levy on a trial basis. It force multiplies because Port Colborne is pledged to match whatever monies we come up with. So if we do come up with 12,000, it'll actually be 24, and they're going to do that for the 2 years. So we double our because this is mission critical to Port Colborne's identity, and it's their strategic plan and their growth and their model, their vision for themselves in the future. Ergo, they're prepared to make that investment and match. They're doing everything they can to encourage and to make this a good opportunity for the neighboring municipalities. Pelham's offerings are very complementary in that they are different and distinctly so from what one can do on the South Coast. We'd have there's several businesses that are sort of in that field would be the only ones within their offering of those municipalities. So it's actually a unique opportunity. We hope it will provide value. They're going to do some, I say they, it would be us were we to join, but there will be some sort of data modeling and analysis, and I hope to have some meaningful quantitative data to report back in the future. And the first report might just be updates on structure and how things are going, but fundamentally we mean to be able to provide data and to determine whether or not there's a bang for the buck. I'm quite certain there will be, but the point is you'll be able to make those determinations this term of council. So we ask for the $12,000 as seed money. I would also point out that the town would be very well represented because Wainfleet's agreed to appoint Jennifer Sturton as one of their 2 representatives, and of course she wears 2 hats. And so we would commit her services as donations in kind. It will be some legal work surrounding the undertaking, and she is the only municipal solicitor between the municipalities involved. So Director Dusling, Town Solicitor Sturton, and I would be our 3 municipal representatives with the ultimate goal of within 2 years of removing at least the CAOs from my perspective. But to get the thing running well, I think it requires the 3 of us. And Director Dusling has considerable skill, expertise, and education and training and economic development to the extent that this is an ECDEV initiative. So I think it's an excellent opportunity. We think we can and will leverage considerable funding from upper orders of government that is not previously being directed at this municipality or the others involved. So I think for $12,000, I can't say exactly how much money that's going to leverage into marketing and advertising some of the good things we have here in Pelham, but it's going to be far more than $12,000, and it's really seed money and then some staff time. But Port Colborne has a dedicated staff resource, so it'll be always housed out of Port Colborne, regardless of what the final structure looks like. Some of that's foreseeable. We hope you feel this adds value, and if so, I'd ask for your support for the initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Councillor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mayor, I think the numbers I've been familiar with in tourism for Niagara region is 12 million people have usually visit, and that number is gonna go up to 18 million over the next 5 or 10 years. So this is a real opportunity, and I think for $12,000 and put us in a position where we're in the front of tourism. We have geosites here. We've got a lot of things in Pelham that'll be advertised around the world if we do this. And I should say something to the CEO as well. I was quoted in the paper of saying that he had a ability to distinguish between fantasy and reality, I think I said, and I was quoted as saying that. It should have said occasionally able to, so.
Thank you for
And
that
this,
clarification.
and this might be one of the places where he's picked up on realities here. So this is a real opportunity for us, and I'll be voting in favor of it for sure. And the question for the CAO, is this part of was this the group that received the funding from the Federal Economic Development Corporation for Southwestern Ontario? They got $100,000, I think. And that was just yesterday, so perhaps it's,
I am unfamiliar with that. I'm sorry.
yeah, I think it was announced by Vance Badaway, and it was the South Coast, $100,000, so.
Good news.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Anyone on this side? No. I'll go back to Counselor Nesnick.
Yes, just quickly a comment. So I'm very excited to see this joint tourism initiative. Echoing words of Mr. Cribbs, we do have unique venues and unique opportunities in our town and in our surrounding area to offer tourists. So marketing that and bringing folks in to see us will be an exciting adventure moving down the road.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any other comments before I call the vote? Not seeing any. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2024-0176, update on changes to town purchasing process for information, and that Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to take all necessary steps for Pelham to formally join the Canoe Procurement Group operated by LAS, and that Council approve in principle the proposed approaches to the use of rosters in situations where time is of the essence, typically grants and emergencies, or for the purchase of services that are expected to cost less than $100,000. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any comments, questions on this report? Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I definitely am supportive of both canoe and rostering. The region uses rostering on projects in order to expedite the process of getting through the process. Because with the grants that we've received, we've seen what happened when we don't have timelines. And if you have a rostering program, that shortens that front end of the project when you're involving the engineers, architects, and all those. We've seen what's happened with the washrooms in Centennial Park. And I believe if we had a rostering project, we may have not extended that extreme large amount of time on the specifications and design, which almost took more than the construction project. So I'm definitely in favor of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any other comments? Counselor Olson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, my comment is to do with the standards that or the report that we have in, I guess it's the S400, our policy for purchasing. And one of the things I don't see us doing enough of is requests for information, requests for interest, expressions of interest, I think it's called. And I think that would open up a lot of different places. You know, when Councillor Wink mentioned local suppliers this morning, and I think that would give them an opportunity to take part in our purchases, because I've had people say to me, you know, I could do that, and they just don't seem to know how to go about it. And maybe the process is there, but request for interest would expose a lot of things, and we've got a lot of entrepreneurs and businesses in the community that might be able to take on some of these things. The other thing is we also define lobbying in our AS 41 there and or 400, and I think that's something that we should be very conscious of, because I think that exposes us to some of our purchasing policies to be challenged, just simply because, somebody got here first and spoke up first. They shouldn't automatically get the award of a contract. And I looked up the other one was the purchasing for Niagara region that's referenced. I guess it's a purchasing group. If you look at that carefully, there are some 27 or 28 products and commodities mentioned along with their sourcing. 18 of those things are actually priceless. So what you have essentially is a directory of people who can do these things, and then you buy from their price list. The other 8 or 9 were actual bids and quotes, and most of them were for long-term contracts. They weren't just one-year contracts or spot buys or anything like that. They were long-term contracts, which brings me to long-term contracts, and maybe we should be considering some of those a little more as possibilities, and perhaps up to 4 years at a fixed price with fixed performance and that type of thing, and that would reduce some of the administrative cost of administering a purchasing system. But those are just 3 observations I'd make about what we have here, and I thank and appreciate the staff for inviting us to comment on this, because I think this is something of great interest to us, and transparency, of course, is going to be paramount with our community to make sure that their dollars are spent in the proper place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Olson. Any other comments? So I have one, correct me if I'm wrong as I go down this road, is that when a company applies to work for the town, to take on an RFP, do they not, there's a place or level that they have to be pre-approved to bid. Is that correct? Is that only on major highway properties or portions, but somewhere along the line, don't we have to pre-approve just about everybody that bids on our RFPs? No? Okay.
Well, Mr. Quinlan Murphy has.
Oh,
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor.
thank you.
Currently, anyone can register on our bids and tenders as a vendor. As part of the evaluation process, that's when we review whether whether the vendor is eligible, meets the criteria for the RFP that goes out. For larger projects, I think what you're thinking of, maybe at the region, definitely would do this, and Jason can expand on this. For large construction projects, they they have a short list, like they go out and shortlist the contractors, and then from that short list is where they would ask for them to bid on it. So I don't know, Jason, if you want to expand on that?
To the Director of Public Works.
Sure, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So looking at road projects, water, sewer, or water main, you basically got 2 different types of contracts. So one is a request for proposal. That is usually for procuring the services for design, that type of thing. When in the RFP proposal itself, there's an evaluation process. So there's a technical component and there's a price component. Both are evaluated and used as part of the overall scoring. But in that RFP review process, during the technical review, there is usually a minimum requirement that they need to meet in order to advance to the next phase, which would be opening the price, so to be considered for the whole assignment. When you're looking at construction projects, and dealing with contractors, so this is after the design is done, and you've got a clear scope of work and you tender that project. Normally, that is based on price, and we have an open system through bids and tenders for contractors to bid on those types of projects. With respect to contractors, there's usually not an evaluation completed unless there's been past experiences, them working with a town where it's not been favorable, and then we can we have the clause in the contract to look at bringing a recommendation back to council for award or not award.
Okay.
There are instances as well, during a construction project, you may want to go down a road of pre-qualification. So in that case, you would put a pre-qualification package out to solicit proposals from contractors, and through that process, you can ensure that they have the qualifications to bid on the project, and then the tender is really limited to those people that pre-qualified for that particular project. So I haven't been involved with any of those yet with the town, but that is also an option that you could go through.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, thank you very much for clarifying that, both of you. Thank you. Any other comments on, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor Wayne?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director then. So what you just explained is for the large construction projects, we'll still retain the process that we're using now. That's over and above what's being presented in this document, correct?
To the CAO?
I think that's a very fair characterization. I mean, our current process is changing, and that's a work in progress, but yes, to your question.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? See none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to the presentation and consideration of bylaws. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be resolved that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaw, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaw. 1. Bylaw 55-2024, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into an agreement with the Harrington Group Limited for consulting services as per the proposal, Coordinated Accessibility for Ontarians with Disability Act compliance for 2024 to 2026, and to repeal and replace bylaw number 4397-2021. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item? The hiring of Harrington Group for another 4 years. I talked to the CAO. The town has gotten very good service from this group. They obviously very knowledgeable of what they've done. This is their business, is making sure accessibility is indeed taken part in the town. So, any other comments, questions? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? See none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider the following. B, personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees. D, labor relations or employee negotiations. 1 item advisory committee appointment. C, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality. 1 item, Ward 2. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries. We will now go in closed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If council can give us a few moments to stop